Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday now from 1 to 3 p.m. And, so first day with the, new scheduling, still trying to pull up what anime are in theaters, but I do have the new game release list, so let's get started right on that, which is what we always do at the top of the hour. And oh, egad, what a release week this week was. So many games came out, and if anyone's wondering why I didn't mention some of these games, last week, that's because they weren't on the list yet. That's what usually happens, is there's a few games that are actually, scheduled way ahead of time to come out, and then the rest just come out when they do, and then you're like, oh wow, that was a lot of things. So let's get started. First of all, for PlayStation 4 this week, Absolver came out, which is a kind of a multiplayer, open world fighter thing. Also, the Ancient Amuletor Into the Ice DLC came out, which is free for, the first couple weeks to a month. That's a PlayStation VR game, but if you have Ancient Amuletor or plan on getting it, I'd download that now while it's, still free. Ark Survival Evolved apparently came out, along with Art of Fighting Anthology. I think that's a port of the PS2 version. Dead Alliance Day 1 Edition. Everybody's Golf, which is actually Hot Shots Golf. Everybody's Golf is its Japanese name, and they're like, we're just gonna roll with Everybody's Golf. And yeah, it's crazy, because they, pretty much turned it into a weird golf MMO. And better still, it's not full price, which is really nice. Fishing Planet, which has a hilarious trailer, and I think that might be free. I need to look into it. Grim Legends 2, Song of the Dark Swan. Abduction, which is a new game from a lot of the makers of Myst and is very Myst-like. Redout Lightspeed Edition, which is a high-speed F-Zero-esque, more Wipeout-esque racer. So that happened. Resident Evil Revelitans. Shantae Half-Genie Hero Pirate Queen's Quest. The Pirate Queen DLC is here. You can now download it and play as Risky Boots, who has her own entire campaign. Then Sneaky Bears, which is a weird PlayStation VR, I think it's a wave shooter game, along with Spark, which is a PlayStation VR V-Sport, which we will be talking about later in the show, because of all these games, that's the one I decided to go with, and, a little sore from all that sparking. Also, Still Time, Surf World Series, the Elder Scrolls Online Horn of the Reach, so I guess that's new DLC expansion, The Lost Bear, the Metronomicon Slay on the Dance Floor, which is some kind of weird combination, turn-based RPG music game? Looks kind of interesting. I do want to play that, but too many games. The Sexy Brutale Full House Edition, still not sure what that game is. Warriors All-Stars, which is a Dynasty Warriors crossover game similar to Warriors Orochi, but more crossover-y and only one character instead of the tag team of 3. Unfortunately, it does not have multiplayer, which I found to be very disappointing. Also, White Day, a Labyrinth Named School, which is a Korean horror game. Windjammers, everyone's favorite game of hyper-advanced Pong, finally came out. XCOM 2, War of the Chosen, which is some DLC for XCOM, which has a lot of updates that should be in the game normally, but aren't, and people are kind of pissed about that, because, XCOM 2 is very buggy and poorly optimized, and rather than patching that, they're like, no, you have to buy the expansion to, fix our game. Thanks. Also, Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the first Yakuza game being sold at a delightfully low price. Good on them for that. Also, apparently today, Gunscape Seismic Pack and X-Morph Defense come out, and tomorrow is Detention, last day of June. Life is Strange Before the Storm, Episode 1. Oh, and the first Tekken 7 DLC, which should be the one with Tekken Bowl. Excellent. What came out on Xbox One? Xbox One got Ark Survival Evolved, Dead Alliance, Day 1 Edition, Killing Floor 2, Pillars of Eternity Complete Edition. Recore the Definitive Edition. That's that game from, oh geez, his name escapes me. The guy who did Mighty Number 9 and was kind of sort of Mega Man Legends-y, but realistic, but not, I don't know. Recore Definitive Edition is out. Didn't see that coming. Redout also came out on Xbox One along with Resident Evil Revelightens, Shantae Half Genie Hero, Pirates Queen's Quest, Elder Scrolls Online, and XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Although today, Eterno Blade comes out for the Xbox One, which is nice. That's been ported to everything else, that's for darn sure. Feral Fury, no clue what that is. Gunscape Seismic Pack, Surf World Series, the Metronomicon Slay on the Dance Floor, and X-Morph Defense. And then on the 31st, Life is Strange Before the Storm, and the Tekken 7 first DLC. Ooh, and on the 1st, we have Songbringer and White Noise 2 for the Xbox One, so that's interesting. What's on the Switch? Switch got Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I so don't... Actually, no, I do care about that. I want to rent it because I don't like it. Redout, Shantae Half Genie Hero, Pirate Queen's Quest, and tomorrow they are getting a game called League of Evil, which sounds very interesting. And I believe that wraps up what's on the Switch. 3DS, nothing on 3DS this week. And on the Vita, they got Shantae Half Genie Hero, Pirate Queen's Quest, Still Time, and Windjammers. So, what's coming up next week? Let's see, next week we'll be getting Knack 2 for the PlayStation 4. That's right, apparently it's not just a meme. Knack 2 really is coming next week, along with Songbringer and Utawari Mono Mask of Truth, followed by Destiny 2 on the 6th, and More Fight on the 7th for the PlayStation 4. How about the Xbox One? Next week, Xbox One is getting Don't Knock Twice and Destiny 2 and More Fight. How about the Switch? Next week, Switch is getting Lego Worlds and RBI Baseball 17, followed by More Fight and The Bridge, and then there's going to be a Splatoon 2 console bundle. Very nice. Let's see, PlayStation Vita next week. We'll be getting Utawari Mono Mask of Truth. Holy crap, Drive Girls is next week? Didn't see that coming. Drive Girls is a game about cute girls who transform into cars and beat up robot bugs. Yeah, the usual. I'm kind of interested in that, because it's so beautifully stupid. And next week, the 3DS will be getting Monster Hunter Stories. So that wraps up our new game releases this week and next week, of which, quite a bit. I still have to figure out what anime are going to be in theaters, so I will tell you that after the break. Because next up we have Be As You Are by Mike Posner. Please enjoy, and thank you so much for listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. And stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. Sing my Sarah, broken head. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Broken Halos by Chris Stapleton. And this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. now. So, let's talk anime in theaters. Now that I've had a moment to actually look it up, it would appear that G-Kids' Studio Ghibli Fest is doing so well, they're now doing 3 days for every movie. So, if you missed out on seeing Laputa Castle in the Sky, good news, it will be in theaters today at 7 p.m. in, a lot of theaters. Go look up the show times, but, it's a Fathom event, so it's a bit on the pricey side, but it's going to be in a lot of theaters, and I absolutely recommend it. I saw it on Monday, finally, and the movie it inspired so very many video games. Like, that and Nausicaa are both, hugely influential to pretty much the entire JRPG genre, among other things. I was not expecting Dr. Robotnik to randomly show up in Castle in the Sky, but he did. Tell me that's not him. Go watch the movie, you tell me that's not him. And speaking of Nausicaa, that is next month's Studio Ghibli Fest movie. And that'll be September 24th. Tongue twisted here. September 24th, 25th, and 27th will be Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. But good news, in between that, Lupin III Castle of Cagliostro will be in theaters September 14th. Another 7 p.m. Fathom event thing. For those of you unfamiliar, Castle of Cagliostro is pretty infamous because it was pretty much Hayao Miyazaki's first movie that he worked on, even though, it's a licensed property based on the Lupin III series, which, if you haven't seen Lupin III, you really need to. It is a fantastic series, and, hey, why not just start with the movie, why don't you? So yeah, good times, and that appears to be all the anime I can find right now in theaters. Got Laputa today at 3 p.m., then Lupin III will be September 14th, and then September 24th, 25th, and 27th will be Nausicaa. Again, if I'm going to recommend any Miyazaki movies, I would actually recommend Castle in the Sky and Nausicaa a whole lot to anyone who likes video games, just because of how hugely influential they are. To make a long story short, Chocobos pretty much come from Nausicaa, and yeah, Castle, and you will see so many familiar things in that movie. It's pretty great. So, moving right along, it would appear that today Nintendo did some kind of Nindies showcase, which is their indie games, I guess. Point is, it looks like we've actually got some interesting games coming for the Nintendo Switch, which is good, because I've been kind of scratching my head at it. The Switch is such an odd system, because it's such an inverse of the Wii U situation. Because with the Wii U, the system came out, it didn't sell, and so only Nintendo was really making games for it. And that was a big complaint. It was like, no one's going to make games for it because no one bought it, and no one bought it because no one's going to make games for it. The Switch is still actually kind of hard to get your hands on one. And yes, Nintendo is doing very small, stupid shipments, apparently. So, yeah, the Switch is actually selling really well, even though it has games, but it doesn't have a lot of games. As of right now, it's not really doing any better than the Wii U was at this point. But I've been worried about that, because I'm like, I don't see that many Switch games on the horizon, even though this system is selling like crazy and is doing really good for itself, and people really want more Switch games. Why aren't I seeing more Switch games? And now, thank goodness, we're seeing some more. Apparently, Intercreates has a new game called Dragon Marked for Death, which was going to be an online game for 3DS, but now it's moving to Switch. Super Meat Boy Forever is coming to the Switch in 2018. No More Heroes 3, Travis Strikes Again, is coming in 2018, so that's good news. Along with, apparently, a game from Harmonix called Super Beat Sports, which is like a 4-player sports mini-game to the rhythm game? It reminds me a lot of Rhythm Heaven, except, if you combined Rhythm Heaven with Wii Sports, kinda, except no motion control, it's just very rhythm-based. Anyway, very interesting things there. And yeah, speaking of Switch games, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is out. I would love to rent that, because I just look at it and I go, this is a game that completely misses the point of its own genre. Because it's a turn-based strategy game. And everyone's like, oh, wow, it looks like XCOM. Yeah, it looks like XCOM, except what makes XCOM good isn't just the turn-based battles. It's the base building and the way that what missions you choose affect what other missions happen, and the character creation and customization and all the layers to it. This just looks like XCOM-style battles with a party of, there's 8 characters in the game, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the thing, it's for me, strategy games are either about really, really customizing your generic troops and min-maxing their stats, or about having a gigantic pile of characters. And Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle has neither. And it was funny, because when I walked into GameStop yesterday, they were like, why aren't you picking it up? And I'm like, it doesn't appeal to me. Oh yeah, I guess it's too goofy. Okay, no such thing as too goofy for me. There is no such thing as a game too goofy for me. I mean the fact that it needs more characters if you're going to try to pull this nonsense. And, of course, now all the commercials are running, and we've got, before Twitch streams and stuff. And I watched one, and I nearly blew a gasket because they're showing all these quotes about how people are just raving about this game. And my favorite one was that apparently Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle got Best New IP from Game Informer. How in the crap does Mario plus Rabbids count as a new IP? No, you can't just take two existing IPs, duct tape them together and go, it's totally a new IP, guys! No, that's not... Come on. Also, if you were wondering how Sega would screw up Sonic Mania, the game that is getting rave reviews, everyone's loving it, fantastic game, I picked it up on the Switch, I'm loving it, the answer is the PC version. PC version was delayed for 2 weeks, and when it finally came out, people found out that it has de novo DRM on it, and Sega didn't tell people. They have recently patched it to fix the quote-unquote bug that prevented you from being able to play the game while offline, as well as updating the description to tell people it has de novo in it. But yeah, one of my friends was like, I was going to buy that game, but it's got de novo, so I'm not. If you're unfamiliar, de novo is a form of DRM, digital rights management, basically copy protection, and I'm surprised people still use that garbage. Because one of the things that sank PC gaming, like these days, everyone's riding high on, PC Master Race, everything's wonderful with PC, PC's the best system. But there was a point in time where everyone was saying PC gaming is dead. That was about 2006 or so. That was why the Xbox 360 did so well, was because so many PC gamers jumped ship to 360. And a lot of that was because, Steam hadn't taken off yet. And DRM was abysmal. For some weird reason, a lot of PC copy protection is pretty much a virus. They can do some disturbing things. There have been forms of copy protection that will break your computer hardware, that will destroy your disk drives, that open up backdoors that viruses can get into, which is a thing that de novo is famous for doing. Street Fighter V used to have de novo on its PC release, and people were livid about it. And yeah, it really hurt PC gaming, because a lot of people would just, get their games illegally. Actually, one thing that was very common amongst the really hardcore PC gamers was they'd buy a physical copy and never open it and get an illegal download of the game with the copy protection removed. So that way, they don't feel guilty, they still supported the developers, but yeah, the copy protection at times can be as bad as a virus, and that is absolutely going to hurt Sonic Mania's sales, and I legitimately cannot believe that Sega... It's not that I can't believe Sega screwed something up, but I'm surprised that anyone would actually use DRM like that in this day and age. Because no piece of copy protection has ever actually worked. It always gets removed by hackers, and having really awful copy protection that can do terrible things to your computer just makes them feel morally right in doing that. So, yeah, little bit of an awkward situation there. We've got tons more video game news to come, but I'm going to have to take a little break. So coming up next is I Put a Spell on You by Annie Lennox here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. And after a short break, we will be right back with more video game news and information here on GameBabble Live. Thank you so much. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was the hit Tupperware Remix Party featuring Ninja Sex Party. And this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. New time scheduling. Show's a little shorter, but a whole lot meatier. So, let's get back to where we were. Speaking of games coming to Nintendo Switch, Double Dragon 4 is coming to Switch. Yay? I talked about Double Dragon 4 in a previous, back when it came out on PlayStation 4. And it's not bad, but it's not that great. Like, the decision to do retro NES-style graphics was kind of pointless. Basically, it was a good beat-em-up, but it wasn't quite, Double Dragon Advance, Super Double Dragon Neon. It wasn't, and certainly not Double Dragon Zebo. It wasn't quite to that level, but it was solid, and the thing that I really liked is that you can unlock all the different boss characters and play as them. So, yes, there's one thing it did that the Zebo version of Double Dragon also did right, is you could play as all the boss characters. So, yes, you could play as a Bobo for the entire game, and that just makes me happy because a Bobo is the best. But, I think that thing actually released for, a super low price. And that is one thing I'm wondering about. If you remember earlier in the show, I mentioned that Everybody's Golf was not full price. Yakuza Kiwami was not full price. I think Redout is below full price. I'm starting to wonder, is there a low-price revolution going on? I hope so. That'd be really nice. Not just because I really think that if it's possible to sell a game under full price, that it could be incredibly beneficial. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe we're going to see a bunch of companies say, you know what, our game isn't quite AAA, so we're going to sell it at a lower price. And then again, at this point, AAA games are such a freaking joke. AAA definitely does not mean quality anymore. That was actually a fun conversation I had with a friend of mine. I was talking about AAA games, and he said, there's no such thing as AAA games. It's just a marketing term. It's just a marketing buzzword. And I'm like, exactly. So that's what defines a AAA game, is if it has the money and marketing behind it to call itself a AAA game. That's what it really means. That has nothing to do with quality. Funny thing to think about is that until 2006, the launch of the Xbox 360, AAA games pretty much didn't exist. I'm sure you could think of some, big, fancy, high-budget games of the past, like Resident Evil 2, but there's an important thing to note there. That's Resident Evil 2. Sequels are not... sequels it makes sense for. The way it used to work is you release a game, it does really well, then you use the money from that to make a bigger, fancier, flashier sequel while paying attention to reviews to understand what went wrong and what went right with the game and try to fix those flaws, and then you get, this amazing sequel. That happened numerous times throughout video game history, and that's, completely normal. So, anything that came even close to a AAA game before, the 360 PS3 generation was usually, a sequel. And, yeah, I should just make a video or something on the weird nature of AAA games, but right now they've been pissing a lot of people off with their shoehorned-in DLC and season passes and generally assortment of things that make people unhappy. Speaking of DLC, though, hey, Injustice 2 just announced that Black Manta, an Aquaman villain, is going to be coming as DLC, and Street Fighter V just showed off a new character who I think came out yesterday called Manat. She is an Egyptian fortune teller girl, looks kind of like she plays a 2D version of Viola from Soul Calibur 5. Either way, I almost want to buy Street Fighter V now, and it has dropped in price enough that I could justify it. Manet's kind of awesome. And if someone doesn't do a combo video set to walk like an Egyptian, I am going to be very angry. In fact, I might just do that myself. The game almost does it automatically. That is happening. Anyway, let us move on. And hey, speaking of Redout, apparently, this isn't official, but apparently they are poking around with trying to put PlayStation VR support in. I hear the PC release has VR support natively. They didn't put PlayStation VR support in the home release, but they're going to try to patch it in, and that makes me very happy. And yes, we are shifting into the VR portion of the show because there's been a lot of VR news this week. Like one of the other games that came out, Abduction, the Myst-type game, they are supposed to be adding in VR support for that. In fact, people were kind of angry that it wasn't launching with VR support. But it is good to see two games that just came out going, you know what, maybe we should patch in some VR support. And then I'm hearing that it's really looking like Ace Combat 7 will have the complete campaign VR compatible, much like Resident Evil 7. Again, not required, but compatible. And that is my favorite thing. Because I understand VR headsets are really, really stupidly expensive. Not everyone likes them. And I love me some VR games, but I am all about having it just be, an option, a bonus thing. What I'm not all about is doing things like what Tekken 7 did, where it's like, oh, hey, here's a model viewer and a barely there mode that you can play in VR. Come on! At least put life bars in the VR battles, for crying out loud. Anyway, a bunch of people are talking about Gungrave VR, which, if you've been watching the show, I squealed about that months ago. But what's really weird is that all the news reports on it are, like, the same, and they all, like, really reference the PS2 game and act like it's a remake. I think Gungrave VR is a new game, judging by the screenshots that were released months ago, which are strangely not being used. No one knew about Gungrave VR, did they? I literally squealed on the show. But the good news, see, the actual original developers of Gungrave were Red Entertainment. They, went out of business and got bought by a Chinese company. And it made me sad because Red is my favorite character from Hyperdimension Neptunia. But they were in the first game, and then they showed back up for the remake of 2. Wherein they actually became a central character and were awesome. In the first game, they were just DLC. But I'm getting off track, talking about the Nep-Neps. Gungrave VR was being developed, I think, by a Korean developer, and they already made, a Gungrave cell phone game, so people were like, but apparently a hefty chunk of the original Gungrave dev team is on board and working on Gungrave VR, so I'm very interested to see how that turns out. And speaking of Hyperdimension Neptunia, it would appear that Hyperdimension Neptunia V2R, the VR-compatible Neptunia game, is out in Hong Kong, but not Japan? Now I'm even more confused. I am so far beyond baffled. And while we're here, we'll save that for later. So that's happening. Also, they just announced that DreamWorks' Voltron, the one that's on Netflix, is getting a VR game. I would assume relatively soon. It's available for pre-order, but they're saying it's not coming out until December 31st, but I usually see that as a placeholder release date. So I think Voltron VR Chronicles should be soon. It very much looks like one of those quote-unquote VR experiences where it's mostly you sitting there watching a story and then you get to interact every now and then. It does have space battles. It does have, solving some puzzles and things. But I don't think it's going to be a very fleshed-out game. But it's not too expensive, and I want to play it just because I really want to see, that level of cell shading in VR. Because that's one of the things I really wanted to see, is how that kind of super cartoony cell shading will look, in a virtual environment, in actual VR. So yeah, I'm happy about that. And if you've been watching the GameBabble YouTube channel, you'll notice I put up a spur-of-the-moment, slightly out-of-sync stream for something called Zeta with an X. Yeah, that was funny. Money's a little tight this week. It's the middle of the night, and I'm super excited about Spark, which we'll talk about probably after the next break. And someone posts on the PlayStation VR subreddit, does anyone know what this Zeta game is? It just came out on the Hong Kong store, is in English and Chinese, and, the trailer has absolutely no gameplay, and the company does a terrible job explaining the game, and there's just no gameplay footage anywhere on the internet whatsoever, and I'm like, hey, look, I've got half the price of it already in my Hong Kong account. Let me see if I can borrow a few bucks. So I did, and I played Zeta and quickly got that on YouTube because, number one, people need to see what in the heck the game is. And number two, that will draw them to the GameBabble YouTube page. So I need to get to work on that. Maybe do a review of Zeta because I've already gotten almost all the achievements. And I think I can call the game pretty much beaten at this point. If you haven't watched the video, basically it's just a wave shooter where you stand in one place and an overwhelming swarm of enemies come at you and you shoot at them. It uses 2 PlayStation moves. Its big shtick is that it's in, like, super stylized black and white, which I think is to the game's detriment. And it has so many just utterly baffling game design decisions in it. It doesn't explain how anything works. Like, the central move button on your PlayStation Move is your soul capture button. And I'm just looking at, like, what's soul capture? And you'd think, oh, well, maybe you press the button to suck up enemy souls. No, you get the enemy souls automatically. You press the soul capture button to release friggin' soul homing missiles once you've shot down 100 enemies. Might have, and that's a really baffling design decision, because as the button you will press the absolute least on the entire controller, and it's on the central button. They should put either reload or switch weapon on that button. And that's just one of the many, like, weird design decisions. Another one, you have targeting reticles for your controllers on the main menu, but when you actually get in game, you have no targeting reticles. I mean, you have one in the center of the screen, but it does nothing. And, just so many, just, what in that game? But I did have a bit of fun with it, because it did a very, very good job overwhelming me, even though there's only one environment. The enemy attack patterns were random, and it did a good job overwhelming me. Watch the video. Actually, look in the description, and I've got some timestamps on it. And one of the timestamps will tell you how to, like, skip straight to my last run of the game, where I make it to, like, the space crab whales, and that's where I just realized, okay, no, I'm done. Like, the play sessions are about a minute long. That's usually when you start getting really overwhelmed. That one I managed to last, like, 3.5 minutes. That's my best time, was 3.5 minutes, and at that point, they were literally just swarming me with boss enemies, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to get past this point, am I? You're just throwing bosses at me because you hate me. So, skip to that point, and you will absolutely see what that game is all about. I did have fun with it, but, I can't say it enough. That game needs to be cut. Like, they need to cut the price in half. At half price, I'd recommend that game. But at full price, it's like, this just isn't enough content to justify the price tag. But half price, absolutely. Oh, geez, I didn't talk about all the things going on with Shantae Pirate Queen's quest. I guess we'll do... No, I've got a minute. So, I'm actually one of the Kickstarter backers for Shantae. I actually donated quite a bit for Shantae Half Genie Hero, because as I mentioned in a previous episode, longtime fan of the series, and I had to make that push to get playable Roddy Tops in the game. And they say hero mode is coming along nicely. So it sounds like the 3 other playable characters are just going to be wrapped up in one mode, and I think that's kind of disappointing, but I'm curious how they're going to work hero mode. And mostly I'm just really hoping that once they get this gameplay nailed down, that maybe it'll be fleshed out for the next Shantae game. Because I would really like the next one to just recycle these sprites, add on to them, and give each character their own quest. I think that'd be awesome, but I'm just pipe dreaming here. Point is, the Pirate Queen's Quest DLC is out, and, of course, the Kickstarter backers get free copies, because we backed it. We're the reason why Pirate Queen's Quest is even happening. So they're like, you get free copies, you get it early. I got it, like, shortly after the show last week, so I didn't get to really talk about it. And now it's out for everyone. The problem was, getting the DLC codes was wonky, to say the least. For once, the Wii U actually got their codes first, Wii U and PC had, like, no trouble getting their codes, which was a bit of a flip-flop from when the game launched, when I remember PS4 and Xbox One and PC had their, like, actual game download codes a good ways before the Wii U. But the Wii U still got it before the actual release. Now, the tables are turned. Wii U and PC got their DLC codes super quickly, and Way Forward was having trouble getting Xbox One and PS4 codes. They're like, come on, we want to get this out before the DLC actually launches. And what they eventually did, and I kind of want to applaud them for this, they said, you know what, we'll just give the Xbox One, Vita, and PlayStation 4 owners, we'll just give them free copies of the PC game and the free DLC on PC, because we don't want to make them wait, because, they backed us early, they put so much in there, and we're not going to be able to get them their codes in a reasonable amount of time. As of right now, the Xbox One and Vita have gotten their codes. The DLC is now out for everyone, but PlayStation 4 owners still do not have their actual code. And the way Forward did this, again, I applaud them. I'm sure that was actually quite a bit of a drain on their resources to pull something like that. Well, I don't know the exact specifics of it, but still, giving away free PC copies is not, that's not a drain on your finances in at least some way. They've mentioned that they have to actually, quote-unquote, buy the codes. So it's very, I don't know what's going on, but it is nice for Way Forward to go that extra mile and make sure that their fans don't get too screwed over by how much of a quagmire the console trying to get things released on all the different storefronts is. This is a thing I've been observing for a while as a Dead or Alive 5 fan, because I used to have, like, during Ultimate, I used to have both the 360 and PS3 versions, and I would repeatedly it was interesting to see who screwed up this week. 'Cause, like, Microsoft usually lagged behind, but Sony usually screwed things up. And they have just very dumb, rigid rule structures, or at least they did last generation, where it's like, no, we're not going to release things on Wednesday or Thursday because we forgot to upload them. We do our uploads on Tuesday, and if you missed the boat, tough luck, even if it is our own fault. And they clearly have loosened up on that this generation, and it has been far less of an embarrassment for everyone involved. But weird things still happen. Anyway, I think it's a good time to take a break. Give me just a minute. And when we get back, we will talk about Spark, the world's first V-Sport, which, whoo, is that tiring. I'm going to be moving a sewing machine today, so I might be too worn out, but if I'm not, I really, really want to set up the camera and do a picture-in-picture stream of Spark later tonight to show just how ludicrously active that game is. They are serious about that sport part. Anyway, coming up next is Everyday by Ariana Grande, and then after a short break, we will talk about Spark. So stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. That was What I Like About You by 5 Seconds of Summer, and this is Gel with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And before the break, I told you, it's time to start spawking. That's how words work. Done. We're good with words. No, time to start talking about Spark, the quote-unquote world's first V-Sport. which I was like, that is really pretentious and stupid and really, and then I played the game and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, rules for VR sport. By that, they mean it is a VR sports game, which has been released on PlayStation VR first, but will be coming to all other VR platforms eventually, probably in like a month or two, we'll see. And I think it will have cross-system play, which is good because it is a multiplayer game. And it has a kind of interesting history. The game is made by the developers of EVE Online, and of course EVE Valkyrie, thus. And development of it started before all the consumer VR headsets came out. You know, we knew the Oculus Rift was coming. They had sort of like a beta unit, and they were experimenting, trying to figure out what can we do with this. And one thing they found was that you put two users in a room full of objects they can throw at one another, and they'll start throwing them at one another. And they were like, wow, this is really fun, just throwing things at each other. We should build a game around this. So they started with a thing called Project Arena, which was pretty much the Tron Discs game. From, the movie Tron, as well as Discs of Tron, but whatever. Point is, they basically made the disc game from Tron, and it was turning out really good, but they realized they needed to make some tweaks, they needed to make some adjustments, and they also realized, wow, this game is ludicrously tiring. Like, it was a very, very active game, like a real sport, and they decided that was the angle they were going to sell the game as, that it is a real sport played in virtual reality. And so it has evolved, and now Spark is out, and it is pretty freaking nuts. But I will say, video footage of it does not do it justice, especially from a third-person angle. You kind of have to play it in first person. Because a lot of people look at it and they go, oh, it's just overglorified Pong. Oh, so you play tennis in VR. No, not quite close. It's Dodge Pong. It's Dodge Pong. Here's the way it works. So, you're on one end of a hallway, your opponent is on the other end of a hallway, and you each have your own ball, and you can only catch your own ball. And you throw your ball at your opponent, and you're trying to hit them. You cannot you cannot grab your opponent's ball, but if you have your ball in your hand, you generate a shield you can use to bat away your opponent's ball, but it shatters after one hit. So you can't just hang on to your ball indefinitely. You wait until their ball comes, you hit it away, then you throw your ball, which recharges your shield. And that's the way it's played, like, in advanced mode. That's pretty much the way it's played. It's almost turn-based. Admittedly, I haven't had a chance to sit down with advanced mode yet, but it's almost turn-based in a way, because it's like, you smack away your opponent's ball, you throw your ball, they catch their ball, smack away your ball, throw their ball, you catch your ball, smack away their ball, you throw your ball, back and forth like that. However, in basic play, which I almost want them to rename street play because it's just plain better, you get knuckle guards. And you can punch away your opponent's ball. And I'm sorry, that literally makes the game for me. I have to eventually play at least one match in advanced mode, but I'm sorry, no, basic mode is way, way better. Admittedly, it's most of why I lose, but I am all about the ball punching. Just, it makes the game so much better, and the risk is so high. Like, it kind of almost isn't worth it. But one of the things they did, and this is the kind of thing that only comes about if you've heavily, playtest a game. Like, this isn't something you'd think of normally. When your opponent's ball hits the wall behind you, it shatters and reforms in front of you. And you're going to say, well, that's a weird feature to have. Why would it do that? That's because if the ball bounced off the wall at you and hit you in the back, it would be really, really stupid. Like, you don't really think about it, but in VR, getting hit from behind like that with such a fast-moving ball, you wouldn't really be able to dodge it. It would be an incredibly cheap thing to have happen. And I have no doubt that in the beta phases that happened repeatedly, and they were like, you're scoring all your points by hitting me in the back, this is stupid. And it's because of this that, like, the game gets really weird. Like, part of the idea behind this was to make a sport that could only be played in VR. And the weird way the ball behaves when it hits the wall behind you is the kind of thing only VR could provide. Because, yeah, if you don't hit back the enemy ball and it just hits the wall behind you, it shatters and reforms, and then it moves, like, slowly back towards your opponent. And if they don't catch it, it will just, like, hover in front of them. It becomes... like, they can't be hurt by their own ball if you don't hit it back at them. They can if you do hit it back at them, though. So that's, like, a really weird function. And also, though, to make it so that way you really want to hit your opponent's ball back at them, there is a target behind you, pretty much representing the area you could reasonably defend. And if the opponent's ball gets past you and hits that target... like, its speed gets upgraded, and I don't know all the specifics of this. I don't know if the speed buffs are, like, permanent or what the deal is, but as the balls get faster and faster, that's when it gets more and more interesting. And yeah, it is I totally agree with the term V-Sport. My arms are a little on the sore side. I was sweating up a storm yesterday. I don't normally drink Gatorade, but oh egad, I wanted some Gatorade yesterday. It was intense. My VR headset was full of sweat, which is really gross because it has that rubber guard, and when rubber gets wet, that's because like people hear that and they're like, but this is all just like motion control. You sit there, you wet. No, you get up, you play that game. Because it's not only is it one-to-one tracking both of your hands, but it is tracking your head and thus your body. Like I said, it's dodge pong. You have to dodge out of the way. You are ducking and leaning and just moving all over the place, which is why I kind of want to do a stream with picture-in-picture, because I realize most people are using the built-in PS4 streaming function, which actually works really well for VR now. I'll tell you why in just a minute. So there isn't a lot of picture-in-picture, like, footage of the game. I know at least one person was doing that, but it's like, I kind of want to do that just to show how obscenely active that game is. And, like, it really is a sport, and there's something kind of magical about that fact. Because what that means is that your actual physical performance is being recorded and captured and sent across the internet to compete against another person's actual physical performance somewhere else in the world. And that is such a welcome to space year 2017. We have VR sports now. It's kind of interesting, and wow, it's a very different kind of fun, too. Because, like, if you've seen some of my really old episodes, it's no secret that I am a strong proponent of real motion control. I need to emphasize that, real. The waggly crap that most Wii games did is not what I would describe as motion control. Most Kinect games didn't really fit the bill either. I know, it's like pretty much I was just advocating for the PlayStation Move. But it was the one motion controller that did it right. Believe it or not, there was motion control before the Wiimote. And, yeah, the general way Cripes, I'd spend hours explaining why the Wiimote was a mess. The long story short is Nintendo put their controller together backwards. Like, no joke. Because the camera is actually inside the Wiimote and it's sensing where the TV is, where literally everything else, you have a camera type thing on top of the TV sensing where the controller is. And that works out a lot better for motion tracking. Admittedly, the Wiimote made a better light gun because it is literally built almost identical to the GunCon 3. Like, that is, the Wiimote is the way modern HD TV compatible light guns work. But yeah, as a motion controller, the Wiimote was not very good. I've always been a strong proponent of motion control, and one of the arguments I kept hearing from people is motion control is too tiring. No one wants to do that for a video game. No one wants, because a lot of people, they play their games to relax, and I completely understand that, especially with how sore my arms are right now. Actually, they're not that bad. I've played some other very active motion-controlled games that put my arms really out of commission for a couple days. This is nothing. This is nothing. I just got a little bit of a sore shoulder right now. This is nothing. But, like, the sheer amount of activity in this game makes me very happy. It is definitely a workout, and I look forward to seeing some more workout-ish games for in VR, and it's a different kind of fun, because it is one where you are so physically moving around, and that's good, because, oh my god, if you knew how badly I need to lose weight. Like, this is not good. This is not good. I feel like I lost weight. I feel like I lost some weight yesterday, which is good. Oh, goodness knows I was sweating up a storm. I at least lost some water weight. Oh, but yeah, the game is very interesting. Would I say worth buying a VR headset for? Not quite, but it's one to add to the list. Like, I know there's a lot of negative articles about VR currently floating around, and I loved one of the articles where they were like, how'd they put it? Rather than Oculus and Vive duking it out to see who's VHS and who's Betamax, now they're working together to make sure they aren't both Laserdisc. And I read that and I'm like, that's a good analogy. Because Laserdiscs are awesome. If you were a hardcore anime fan back in the 90s, Laserdiscs were like the holy grail. Because you could have both dub and sub audio on there on top of the fantastic video quality. Laserdiscs were very popular in the anime community, but they were very expensive and they were a super luxury item. I still don't have a Laserdisc player, and yes, I still want one because of that. Well, if you want to know what I really want, it's a laser active, because yes, I am that stupid. Oh, God, I want a laser active so bad. You do not want to know how much a laser active will cost you. But it's an old video game system. It is ludicrously overpriced in ways you cannot possibly comprehend. But Laserdiscs were like a really cool luxury item, and I'm not 100% sure on this. I don't know all of my I don't know all of my history on this, but I am 90% certain that DVDs might not have happened without Laserdiscs. Like, I know Laserdiscs are actually weirdly like this middle ground between analog and digital. Like, they're digital, but they're analog. I know Laserdiscs are really weird like that, whereas DVDs are like pure digital. But I'm pretty certain DVDs wouldn't have happened without Laserdiscs. Laserdiscs were like the proto-DVDs. DVDs were like... Because the main thing, admittedly, this comes from an anime fan standpoint, because the main thing that made Laserdiscs so cool was the ability to choose between dubs and subs on your discs, and, of course, DVDs immediately started doing that, because that's a very, very standard feature on DVDs. Thank goodness for DVDs. I love DVDs. And I do look at it and I say, maybe we wouldn't have had DVDs if we didn't have Laserdiscs first. Like, they were the first baby step towards the DVD, and we probably learned a lot from them. And I think that's where VR is right now. It is Laserdiscs, but it will eventually become DVDs. I would definitely say it is an overpriced luxury item that is really, really cool, but baby steps. But I will also say that the release schedule for VR is really picking up this year. We're seeing VR support being added into a lot of games. And, yeah, maybe things will turn around this year. That was the thing I was saying in a lot of my earlier things was wait a year, wait a year, wait a year. We're coming up on that 1 year mark. I believe the PlayStation VR came out in October. So we're coming up on that 1 year mark, and it's sounding like that was what we needed to do. Still really pricey, though. Like, you get it. I would say to anyone who's like listening to this and being like, man, I really want a VR, look for deals, because there are like bundle packs and deals at like far more reasonable prices. And again, still taking our baby steps. Like, we still don't have a good sword swinging game, because that's of course the thing I want, is something where I can swing a sword at things. The only one of those we have right now is Fruit Ninja VR. Now, that's not the only one in development. We've got Reborn coming out soon, Carnage Chronicles, Redemption's Guild, Skyrim VR, ROM Extraction. That's at least 5 different games that will let me swing a sword at things. Though I'm hearing the sword swinging in Skyrim is kind of meh. They've described it as just a damage stick. Like, it doesn't... Mostly because the VR is just being added into Skyrim, not like a game built around it. So rather than the enemies, like, reacting dynamically to getting hit, pretty much swinging your sword at the enemies is like hitting them with just a damage stick. Did it connect with the enemy? It did damage. So, I am hearing that's kind of disappointing about Skyrim VR, but I will take whatever I can get. I need to swing a sword at something. But yeah, that's a good example of where we're at. We still don't have a proper, like, PlayStation Move-based / aim-based first-person shooter for PlayStation VR. Like, competitive, I mean. You've got cooperative and single-player with Farpoint, which is pretty awesome. But there's no competitive one yet. We had a competitive one with head-tracking-based aiming with World War Toons, but still not quite what I'm talking about. And in the off chance anyone is listening and has a PlayStation VR and didn't pick up Riggs, by the way, apparently Riggs is the free game this month for PlayStation Plus subscribers, which is awesome because I love Riggs. It's probably one of my favorite PlayStation VR games. That means I'm going to have to go back in there because maybe people will actually be playing online. But yeah, Spark is a very, very neat game. And I was saying earlier, why streaming with the PS4's built-in streaming would be better with PlayStation VR. In the most recent update, they made it so that way chat messages will actually show up in VR. Because that's always been one of the problems with streaming VR is you cannot see the chat. And some people had it set up where, like, a robot voice would read the chat to them. But I always have a hard time understanding the robot voice. It's very distracting. So having the, I think it's an option you can turn off, but having the chat messages just show up in VR is very nice. Unfortunately, when you stream your VR games that way, you get a weird fisheye lens effect, and I don't know why. You do not get that from the, like, streaming it directly from your PS4 / the video outbox thing. So, I don't know what's up with that. And it is one of the things that makes me wish there was a way to double stream. You know, there probably would be if you had 2 Twitch accounts. But you'd need a lot of bandwidth for that. Because I was like, I'd love to, like, stream on my computer, but still have the text from popping up on my screen. It's like, wait, no, to do that, you would need to stream to, like, a throwaway Twitch account, and then also stream to your main Twitch account, and that means you would be double streaming, and that would be devouring bandwidth, so you'd need, like, 2 separate internet connections, if not 3, and, possible but not plausible, I believe, would be the term to describe that. But yeah, no, Spark is really, really awesome, and also, it does have character customization, which is very nice. I might have spent more time dancing in front of the mirror than actually playing the game, and I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't try to stabilize VR video by hand. I spent like 2 or 3 hours trying to do that, and it didn't work out too well. You can see the results. It's in the new video that tells about the new time for GameBabble Live. It was a valiant attempt. That like 4-second clip took like 2 or 3 hours. Sadly, I'm kind of thinking of doing it again. I've got ideas. I can't believe myself either. But one of the things, a lot, like, they really wanted the characters for Spark to have a sort of professional quality to them. Like, they want to have some fun customization options, but they still wanted them to not just be goofy. And it is very weird, the aesthetic they went with, where everyone is these glowing plasma people that hover there. And one of the questions that I saw, like, on the trailer for it, someone was like, would it have been so hard to animate legs? Because the characters don't have legs. They're floating torsos, and they just, you know, where their legs are, it just sort of fades away. And people are like, why don't they have legs? And I can tell you why. Have you seen Ancient Amulator? Very nice game. I applaud them for having legs, but that is a good example. Because you don't think about all the different ways you can position your legs. Like, remember, it's only tracking your hands and your head. It can make a good guesstimate about where your arms and your upper and lower body would be, but your feet are just, there's no way it could tell. And, like, there's so many different positions your feet could be in, and the rest of your body still move the same way, yet at the same time there's certain positions which would be required for other things. You don't think about how much you change your footing, and the result you can actually see in Ancient Amulator, where you've got some pretty nice body tracking, but then you have these really stiff feet that are just standing straight up and down, and if you move your body too much, they like shuffle around a little bit to adjust, and it looks awkward and dumb. And I totally understand how the developers of Spark looked at this and said, you know, it would just look better if we cut off their legs. And it's true. Because without the legs, you just having that floating body with arms and a head moving around, it looks super smooth and natural and organic in the way the characters move. And it's honestly pretty darn impressive. If they had legs, it would look really, really janky. So, there is your explanation for that. I do believe it is time for a quick break, and then we will probably talk about Yakuza a little bit. Anyway, coming up next is How She Rolls by Chase Rice, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you. That was I Hate You, I Love You by Gnash featuring Olivia O'Brien here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And also, I just got done talking with people, because the right people showed up, about what I'm going to do with the archived episodes, because a lot of people have been wanting to listen to like past episodes of the show or listen to the show at a different time, which I completely understand, and I've been keeping archives of every single episode that I do. Unfortunately, it sounds strange, but there's no real free place to upload podcasts. SoundCloud has a file size limit and a limited amount of storage. They're like, all podcasts have to be paid for, and let's be real here, I do not have enough fans to justify that, and I don't monetize anything anyway. Like, I wanted to monetize my YouTube channel, but that was one of those things where it's like, I'm not gonna do that until I get, like, at least, 1,000 hits per video, and I don't get that on my videos. And now, with the way YouTube's being, I don't intend to monetize my channel, because everything will just get demonetized anyway. It's been a struggle for so many content producers. It's like, it's just not even worth it as much as I'd love to monetize it. But it doesn't work out. But as such, I don't have a revenue stream to pay for any sort of podcast hosting, and so I haven't been able to do that. I talked with some people who said they could get me the hookup, and I'm not going to give out any details, especially if they're listening, but it is going to be something provided through the school. Apparently we have some new things being put in place slowly, so I will keep you posted once we can actually get the podcast up. But that does make me happy. And yeah, so other than that, I was going to talk about Yakuza, but I did want to say one more thing about Spark, and that's the fact that I'm so happy they started with PlayStation VR. I know, little bit of a bias. I'm kind of salty that Galgun VR isn't on PlayStation VR yet. You know, the millisecond that comes out, I will have it, and I will play it, and I will review it, because boy do I have experience with the Galgun series. I actually played the original 360 game, which people don't even remember happened. I have that. So, Galgun VR. When that comes out on PlayStation VR, it will happen. But it's not. But I'm happy that Spark came out on PlayStation VR first, because, well, the PlayStation VR has the wonkiest, maybe wonky's not the word, the weakest motion tracking of all the different VR headsets. And a lot of people like to blame the controller for this, and that's a little bit of it. But anyone who's going, the tracking on the controller is so bad, they need to make a new controller, it's not going to help as much as you think. Because the main reason why all the other VR headsets have way better tracking, 85% of that is because you have multiple cameras. Yes, the other motion controllers for the other VR units have more markers on them, allowing for more accurate, tighter tracking as well, whereas the PlayStation Move has one light bulb instead of a bunch of infrared lights. That one LED ball is still very, very capable. I would say that adding more markers on the Move would improve tracking a little bit, but it would be like a 15% improvement. And would you really want to buy 2 brand new controllers for a 15% improvement? No, you wouldn't. What we need is multiple cameras. And I know you're going to say, but wait, the headset tracking, if you've ever played it, headset tracking seems really good. Yeah, that's because there's lights on the back of your headset, like strap. So even when your head is turned around, it can still track your headset because of the gyroscope and the lights on the back of your head. The tracking gets a little bit worse when you're turned around, but it's still really, really good with the headset. You can't do that with the Move controllers. The problem is, you turn around, your body gets in the way, and it blocks the controllers. The camera can't see them. The system can't track them. That's what's wrong with the Move controllers, other than their lack of an analog stick and idiotic button layout. I mean, I've been complaining about that since day one. But that's what's actually really wrong here. But in spite of that, you can still do some very good motion tracking with them. And starting with the PlayStation VR meant that they could give it that extra tender love and care that the Move needed for better tracking. Because yes, it's easier to get tighter tracking with all those markers, but again, it's not enough of an improvement to justify buying a new controller for the PlayStation VR, so they just need to spend more time with it. And I say this because of the disastrous launch of Arizona Sunshine and some of the wonk in the incredibly awesome Super Hot VR. Because we've generally seen when a game is released on PC first and then gets ported to PlayStation VR, there's usually tracking issues because the devs didn't spend time really honing in the tracking. You know, they get it working good enough, they put it on there, and then everyone complains, and they tweak it in some patches. The fact that Spark was like, let's start with the PlayStation VR, and then then port it to everything else, was a really good move, because that means they've already dealt with all the flaws that'll come from the worst of the worst. And it's, I know you might for a split second be thinking, so are the PC owners getting screwed here? And the answer is, shouldn't you have just released it on PC and then done PlayStation VR later? Would that have been so bad? Yes, because the PlayStation VR, thanks to the fact that it's on consoles and was at least the cheapest VR headset, like the Oculus has had some interesting price drops and stuff, it has the largest install base of any VR headset. Like, I believe they've made it to 2 million sold, which for VR headsets, that's a very large number. So a hefty chunk of the player base is going to be on PlayStation VR. if you make it so that way the PlayStation VR owners, like, can't play Spark as well as the PC owners, if it's really that much of a detriment, you lose a huge chunk of your player base. And I know a bunch of people are like, well, then that would encourage them to buy PC VR headsets. No, it wouldn't. Anyone who bought a PlayStation VR headset bought it because it's the cheapest headset or because they have a PC that couldn't really run a VR headset. Everyone knows the PC VR headsets are much better, but the PlayStation VR headset is good enough. A bit more than good enough. It's very, very nice. So if they got screwed out of a good experience with Spark, they wouldn't upgrade their PC. A very small number would rush out, upgrade their PC, and buy a new headset because they just love Spark so much. But most of them would just drop the game and say, we're getting screwed over, screw this game, it's not worth playing anymore. And Spark, like, if it has any flaw, it's that there's no versus computer mode in it. It has some single-player, like, target practice training things, but you need to play against other players. And it is going to be cross-platform, I believe, so that's very good. But if, you need as many players as you can get to enjoy the game, and if 2 million potential players get turned off because of tracking issues with the PlayStation VR, it hurts everyone. You need as many people in that game as possible for maximum enjoyment. So them starting at the bottom and working their way up was a very, very good call. I wonder what the Google Daydream is like. I know that's like one of the new headsets out there. It's kind of its own system. I don't know a lot about Google Daydream. So yeah, I just want to applaud them really quickly on starting on PlayStation VR, and I really hope it gets PC users very soon because I want to see the crossplay. I want to see flaws get worked out with crossplay, and I want to be jealous of everyone that has the Oculus Touch controller doing crazy hand motions. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I get a little jealous in Star Trek Bridge Crew when someone has the Oculus Touch controller. I think it's kind of neat. But yeah, that's what's going on with Spark. So let's talk Yakuza. As I mentioned, Yakuza Kiwami just came out yesterday. It is delightfully low priced, and it is a remake of the first game. So, and Yakuza 0 was below full price too, so those are two great ways to get into the series. And the good news is that a remake of Yakuza 2 was just announced. Yakuza Kiwami 2 will be a remake of Yakuza 2. It is in development. So that means that the PlayStation 2 game, that'll be good because I know Yakuza 2 is hard to get your hands on in the States. I assume it's going to get a US release. And that's because it was such a late release for the PlayStation 2 because they had to wait until Sony dropped their quality control standards so they could release the game in Japanese only. So we got it like 2 years later when everyone else had sold their PlayStation 2s and moved on to their PlayStation 3s, and the backwards compatibility for PlayStation 2 games had already been cut. So the game launched at like a really low price, but no one except like me bought it. And it's like, I think it's the most expensive, hardest to get a hold of Yakuza game. It's not too expensive yet, but in a way, I kind of hate it when games wind up jumping up to ludicrous eBay prices because it's like, man, there's so many people who need to play this game that won't be able to because of the ridiculously high price tag. So I'm happy to hear that Yakuza 2 is being remade, so that way people can get in at the ground floor on the PlayStation 4 and go from there. Also found out Yakuza is still using its own proprietary engine, so that's why it's not getting PC releases. They'd said they wanted to do PC releases starting with Zero or Kiwami, but that apparently didn't happen, and that's a bit of a shame because a lot of people need to try Yakuza. Moving on further, Yakuza 6 is, of course, on the horizon, and that will be the only way to play the final version of Virtua Fighter 5, which is probably the final Virtua Fighter unless they do something with Team Ninja. Because, Yu Suzuki left. busy making that Shenmue 3. He's not with Sega anymore. You can't do a Virtua Fighter without Yu Suzuki. So, yeah, Virtua Fighter, unless Team Ninja gets involved or they rent out a Yu Suzuki, Virtua Fighter is pretty much over. And the last version will be in Yakuza 6. You'll be able to play it in the arcades. Which, oh, you got the Yakuza 6 arcades look robust. I know they have a version of Puyo Puyo in there, which I'm never opposed to having a version of Puyo Puyo in all my games. One of the best things about Sonic Mania. They actually animate their Puyos in Sonic Mania. Take notes, Sega. I'm hearing that the retro games from Yakuza 0, like Space Harrier and Fantasy Zone, will be in Yakuza 6. I'm hearing a lot of... There's so much about Yakuza 6 that has me excited. The only problem is that it doesn't have a Haruka campaign, because, I'm sorry, that's kind of the best part of Yakuza 5. But, what a full game of just Haruka. But Yakuza 6 is, yeah, it's shaping up really good. I think we're getting that before the holiday season or early next year, so that's exciting. But I bring all this up because there's been another interesting Yakuza announcement. The Yakuza team will be making a Fist of the North Star game built on the Yakuza engine. Yup. Interestingly, it's not using the Yakuza 6 engine, it is using the Yakuza 0 and Kiwami engine. And the reasoning behind that is that the Yakuza 6 engine is, like, too new and a little bit weird to work with. So they didn't want to go all in on that. They've got a lot of newcomers working on it as well. So, yeah, that's a thing they're going to be doing, though. Admittedly, I forgot to watch the trailer, but it looks very promising. That's just going to be a thing. It sounds very interesting. So yeah, that's the big Yakuza news. And let's see, anything else to report? Just the fact that I'm a little worried about Dynasty Warriors 9. Dynasty Warriors 9 is going to be a free-roaming open-world Dynasty Warriors, which sounds interesting. But it's another attempt. It's a lot like Dynasty Warriors 6, where it's another big attempt to really shake up the series. And they've generally been staying really true to their roots, but once again, Zhang He is wearing too much clothing and lost his claws. And that's a very bad sign. Zhang He has a pretty solid fan base. I'm one of them. Literally the entire series reason I got into the Dynasty Warriors series was because of Zhang He. I remember this. I had just gotten my PlayStation 2, and I remembered I'd played Dynasty Warriors 2 on a kiosk. I had a demo kiosk, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to rent that game. So I go to Blockbuster. I was going to rent Dynasty Warriors 2, and I see sitting next to it is Dynasty Warriors 3, but it's rented out. And I flipped it over, and I look on the back, and they're like 40-plus warriors, and I see Zhang He sitting there with a pair of claws. And I'm like, well, I went up to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, going to Target. Just go buy this game. Heck with renting it. There is ancient Chinese Vega in this game. It is happening right now. I bought Dynasty Warriors 3, just completely skipped that whole renting thing, and I did not regret it one bit. Zhang He sold me on the series. So, much like Dynasty Warriors 6, though, it looks like I think he's using a spear again. It's like, Zhang He without claws that's just a very, very, very bad sign. Hopefully, though, it'll, alright. Hopefully, though, that will get all worked out. And also, I just got some breaking news. Coming up next after me is DJ RK9, and apparently, she will be doing a giveaway during her show. So, you might want to stay tuned for that. I might have mentioned, actually, no, I did mention that in my video talking about the new showtimes. Before me is Anime, and after me is RK9, so I don't know if we're going to turn this into a promo or not, but it is, Wednesdays are kind of, sort of, totally nerd days. So, after the show, which we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, after the show, I would highly recommend staying tuned for RK9. She's going to be doing a giveaway on her show, and it likes to play some very interesting music, so it is very good times. I would stick around for that. So that's what's going on with all of those things. I do believe, though, it is time to wrap up the show. Hope you've all enjoyed, and of course, I will be back next week, again from 1 to 3 p.m. with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, every Wednesday. Stay tuned, and I make no guarantees, but I might stream some Spark. I'll be sure to put up a an announcement video on the YouTube channel. I'll try to do that like a little bit ahead of time. Maybe give it like an hour. If I do it tonight, I will put it up an hour ahead of time. And that'll be super cool. And if it happens tonight, it will be like in the evening, like 8, 9 p.m.-ish, for a Spark stream, if y'all want to see all of that nonsense. But I make no guarantee, because I might be wiped out from moving a old sewing machine. But yeah, hope you've all enjoyed the show. Thank you all for listening. And coming up next, we have The Struggle by Brian Lockett featuring Monica Renee. And after that, well, it'll be time for there'll be a little bit of time before it. Like, I think she actually starts more in like 45 minutes or so. But after me will be RK9, and I highly recommend staying tuned for her, especially because she's got a giveaway coming up. Thank you so much for listening to GameBabble Live and 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Now, The Struggle by Brian Lockett featuring Monica Renee. Thank you so much.